Hi, so in this video I am going to show you the basics of how to get started with knitting. So we've got some wool, yarn I should say. This is Signet Helter Skelter Chunky. And the ball band, it's always a good idea to have a look at the ball band because it gives you lots of information. It tells you how much is in the ball, how long it is, so 125 metres. That'll tell you how far it's going to go, what it's made of, premium acrylic, it's nice and soft, how to care for it. There's the tension square, so it should knit to 14 stitches in 10 centimetres if you use 5 to 6 millimetre needles. The shade number and shade name, the dye lot, which is handy if you're making a project with more than one balls of the same colour, you want that dye lot to be the same. So let's get started. We have our ball of yarn and we have our needle. Now this is an Addy 6mm 60 centimetre circular needle. People who have knit for a long time on straights might think circular needles are difficult, but if you're learning, I would always recommend you learn with a circular because they're very versatile. You can knit backwards and forwards just like you can with straights, but you can also knit round and round, which is what we're going to do because that's a really easy way of creating a nice little neck warmer, which I would say is an ideal first project. So I like the Addies, they've got a nice smooth join here, nice points, and they're not going to snap on you. So casting on. Let's go. Now I'm going to show you the thumb cast on, which is my favourite and pretty much the only one I ever do, and it's the only one that you'll need for 99% of your projects. Now this requires enough yarn to cast on with before you start. So I would recommend 2 meters for what we're going to do. So there's 2 meters. So I've got all this yarn to work with because it's really frustrating if you get to the end and you haven't finished casting on. So we've got plenty of wool to the left and the stuff that's still attached to the ball on the right. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the wool around our thumb twice and then knit off it with the needle. So I don't know why you do it twice on the first. My gran told me to do that and I've just always done it twice on the first. So holding the yarn, wrap it around your thumb like that twice. So you're going, if you hold it in your fist, taking your thumb round it like that twice, and then you're going to get your needle, excuse the clattering and banging, and you're going to put it in as if this thumb is the other of your knitting needles, from the base of your thumb up to the top like that, and then you're going to get the wool that's attached to the ball and you're going to wrap it around the needle. So we're going to go behind the needle and round, and then we're going to scoop out that loop that we've just made around the needle. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice all we've done here is wrap it around the needle. That's fine, that's what the first stitch is. So from this point on, the stitches will actually be stitches, and you're only wrapping it around the thumb once. So thumb in position, wrap it round, and then we're going to go from the base of the thumb up to the tip. You grip it at this point, and then we're going to take the wool that's attached to the ball, we're going to take it round the needle, and then we're going to scoop that stitch out. And then if we pull on this side, that'll tighten the stitch up, and you'll see it sitting nicely there. Ta-da! 2 stitches. Now, don't pull it too tight, otherwise you'll struggle to knit into it, but just pull it tight enough that it's not going to flop about. And usually it's this one that will take up most of the slack, but you might have some slack to take up with this one as well. So we'll do that again, thumb at the ready, round from base to tip, then behind the needle, wrap it round the needle, and see there where you've wrapped it round, you're going to scoop it out and then pull on this side to take up the slack. You might have some slack to take up on that side, depending on how well you've held on to this one. You'll notice that I'm keeping the wool in this hand at all times. I'm not leaving it there and then dropping it. When you start out, you'll probably just leave it there, but you'll find it becomes a lot smoother and faster and easier if you learn how to hold it steady, so you're not constantly dropping it and picking it up. But everyone holds their wool in a different way, and on the continent they hold it that side, so you kind of have to work out your own system for holding the wool. I like to have it, so I'm gripping it there, wrapping it around that finger, and it's coming over there. So wrap around in, you'll find that what you're doing with the scooping out, you can kind of do with your thumb by pushing that loop over and pulling it. So you should see our stitches are all starting to sit neatly on the needle. There we go, we've got 5 stitches cast on. Now we're going to continue to cast on in this manner until the needle is full, and we are going to do 80 stitches to make a neck warmer or cowl. So with this circular needle we're going to knit in the round and create a tube, and that is going to keep our neck warm. So you don't need to watch me do this 80 times. So we'll skip to the point where I've got 80 stitches on the needle. So we now have 80 stitches on the needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get the idea. And that fits all the way round. You can't knit in the round with fewer stitches that don't fit round, because it won't fit. You'll stretch the stitches too much. Now, if we were using these like straights, then we would start the last one we cast on and we would knit that way, backwards and forwards in rows. But we're going to knit in the round. Now the only difficult thing about knitting in the round is this bit, which is making sure you haven't twisted your stitches. So the way to do this, lay your knitting down in a circle, and you see where you've got the stitches on the needle and then the little knot of the stitch underneath. You want to make sure that the knot of the stitch is all the way around the inside. If you see something like this, let's put a twist in it, then you will see that your knots of stitches come around nicely here, and then they go, oh no, they go around here and under here, and that's not sitting flat. So twist it round so that all the stitches are sitting like that. Otherwise you'll knit a Möbius loop, which can be a fun thing to knit, but it's not what we want to do right now. So once you've done that, you're going to take your first stitch. Now we've still got plenty of excess yarn because we made sure we didn't have too little for casting on, and you will end up knitting without by mistake. Everyone does it. I did it myself last week. So try and make sure that you've got the wool that is attached to the ball and not the end that is not. You can cut this short to that length if that helps, now that we don't need the excess for the casting on. This last one that we've cast on that has the wool still attached to it, we are going to knit the first one that we cast on, which was this one here. So to do that, we'll come up closer. Now a lot of patterns will say mark the start of the round, and you'll put a stitch marker on, which is like a loop that sits between the stitches, and you just slip it from one needle to another and it shows you where the start of your round is. We don't need to know for this, so I'm not going to put a marker in. So we're just going to knit this first stitch. To knit, we're going to put the needle in from left to right underneath, like that. So we've put it into that stitch from left to right and underneath it, and it's fallen out. So we're then going to take the wool that is attached to the ball, not the end that we cast on with, and we are going to wrap it around this right hand needle. We're going to go behind and around. We are then going to catch that loop with the tip of the needle and scoop it out. Now I've actually caught a little bit of the other wool. That wasn't sensible. So we're then going to slide that off the finished stitch off the left hand needle. And there we go. That's all there is to it. So let's try that again. So we're going to go into this stitch here. I'm going to go from left to right underneath the stitch. We're going to get the wool and we're going to go round the needle, and then where it's gone around the needle we are going to scoop that stitch out. Now this is the tricky bit, and then slide the finished stitch off the left hand needle. So this is our new row on top. So let's go into the stitch from right to left, round the needle, and then the bit that people find difficult is this scooping out, because especially if you let this go loose, it can be difficult to catch the little blighter. So try and keep a little bit of tension on it, because that will pull it down. If it's sitting up here, you're really going to struggle. So try and pull it down so it's sitting below this stitch here, and scoop it out like that. And then you can slide the completed stitch off. So in, round, out and off. And it's going to take you a few goes to get comfortable with that. As I say, learning to keep the wool tensioned in your left hand or your right hand will make life a lot easier. If you're not having to pick this up and put it down again, also keeping this pulled as you scoop will help you scoop it out, because if you leave this just lying there, then trying to catch it can be tricky. Whereas if you can just keep a little bit of tension on it, it'll stay in place where it's meant to be. So that's knitting. In, round, out and off. This is the knit stitch, and it will create a little V under your new stitch. So that's the old stitch, that's where we've just cast on. This is the new one sitting in it. If you put your knitting down and go away and make a cup of tea, and then you come back and you pick it up and you go, oh, what was I doing? Always look for where the yarn is attached to. So this is the working yarn attached to the ball, and it will always be on the last stitch you knitted. So that should be on the right hand side, and you're about to knit the next stitch on the left hand needle. So you know, because it's very easy when you're going round and round, if you put it in your bag and pick it up, got the needle in, if you pick it up like that, it's quite easy to start knitting back the way, purling in this case. So if you picked it up like that and started knitting, you'd be going back the way. You see the back of your stocking stitch looks different. It's got these bumps, the purl bumps. So if you pick up your knitting again, just have a look and see where is the wool attached to. That was the last stitch I knitted, so that should be on the right hand needle. So you know that you'll be going in the same direction. Now, if you go whiz round and you're brilliant at knitting, think I need a bigger challenge. Right, let's purl. So you'll see when you're knitting that the wool's coming out behind you. It's coming out the back of the work. This is the front, the right side, this is the wrong side, the wool's at the back. When you purl, it's basically just, if I was sat down here and looking up, that's what purling would look like while I'm knitting. It's the reverse of knitting. So we need to get this wool, the yarn, keep calling it wool because that's what we do in Britain. It's actually made of acrylic, so it's not wool, but it's yarn. So we take the yarn, we bring it between the needles so that it's coming out the front towards us. We're then going to go in to the stitch the other way, so we're going to go from right to left. We're then going to take the wool round this needle here, that way. Trying to do it without covering it up with my finger. So round that way. And we're then going to scoop it out the back. So it's just the reverse of the knitting. So we go, have the wool coming out the front towards us. We go from right to left in front of the needle. And we wrap it round like that and scoop it out the back. And that's purling. So when you're working in the round, if you knit every stitch, you'll get stocking stitch. If you want to rib, you need to alternate knits and purls. If you want to garter stitch, you need to do a round of knit and then a round of purl. There's lots of things you can do, and a neck warmer is quite a nice way of trying out these different stitches. So we will do a bit more of this and then we'll show you how to cast off.